Everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe, and our guest today is Rahel Getachew, and she's the founder and managing director of Afrolehar. Rahel, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Devin, for having me.
Well, we're thrilled to have you, and we're excited to learn more about what you're doing. First, why don't we start talking about the problems you see in Africa? What are the problems that you see that you wish you could overcome there?
Well, from sitting from the U.S., it's mostly the fact that we have a perception of Africa that is quite dark and hopeless, a continent that has absolutely no opportunity and no potential for growth. But yet it's not true. And so there's a vibrant economy, there's a dynamic nation across the region. And so the opportunity for Americans to invest is now. And so this is why we started the business about a few years ago. I would say we just celebrated our 6th year to brand the African continent, country by country, but also as a continent.
Well, so tell us about your business. What is your business doing? What are you trying to do to fix this perception of Africa as a place without opportunity?
Well, after a few years of international affairs work as a professional, I decided to establish a cross-cultural branding company because as globalization came into force in the 21st century, one of the main understanding is the cross-cultural communication for us to have a better understanding of each other. And so Afrolehar as a holding company provides the whole gamut of communication, integrated marketing and communication services, what we call solutions. So from digital branding to economic and cultural diplomacy to business strategies and business development. So a US firm that is interested in penetrating the African market, then we assist them with that. And so this is the right time for us to engage in Africa. And so the branding company has also subsidiaries called Knock Knock Africa. So we also incubate our own brands. Knock Knock Africa is an e-commerce platform to provide access to African SMEs to the consumer market in the US and Canada. We also have another brand called Agrifica. Again, it's to promote green business as we are all working towards addressing climate change and environment. And knowing that the world arable land, 60% of the world arable land finds itself on the African continent, and giving a big push towards agriculture, agribusiness, smallholder farmers, building their capacity and scaling them up. Well, we said, why not create a centralized platform to provide access of information both to the US stakeholder, but also to the African stakeholder.
Yeah, so one of the things I think you're trying to accomplish is to help Africans create more value-added products rather than merely exporting raw materials, commodities. Give us some examples of how you're going about that.
So for that solution, we created a Knock Knock Africa. So there's an e-commerce platform which integrates the logistic components to it. So initially, it's the e-commerce platform with a capacity building component, which is one providing information to the market information to SMEs on the African continent, from the branding, because I'm not sure if you have had the experience, but some certain products, African products, have spelling mistakes or the logo is not properly done, the labeling, the packaging, and so on and so forth. And so really addressing the core needs of an SME to actually have their products on shelves in the US. That's one component. And definitely we have a growth strategy. The growth strategy is to ensure that we also facilitate made in USA products into the African continent. So it's quite an ambitious and long-term vision to ensure that there is a marriage, an economic marriage between US and Africa, but to added value products. Commodity component. So for the commodity, we would like to import large, for instance, walnuts and other nuts like macadamia nuts and process it here in the US, make it a little bit more African, as they say, by bringing in certain spices and so on and so forth, and packaging it and also selling it into the market.
I think these are ambitious plans. So what is your vision for the future for what you're doing?
For us, it's to institutionalize Afrolehar and its brands. What it means with institutionalizing is ensuring that we create more jobs here in the US and on the African continent. We're able to change the narrative of the African continent, especially from this side, seeing Africa as an opportunity, but not just seeing it, but engaging. So having an increase of investment into the African region through US investment and Canadian investment, but not just in terms of commodity mining and oil extraction, but rather into scaling SMEs. And this is where you have growing SMEs there, but they need to scale. And so US and Canadian investment can go in and scale these small businesses and to add value to their products.
Well, it is just a wonderful thing that you're trying to do. I wonder if I could just ask you some personal questions, Rahel. You clearly are having some success at this, and you're becoming a role model to a lot of people who are inspired by what you're doing. I wonder if you would tell us who you look up to and who's your role model.
It's actually a hard question because I admire all those who have led before me and continue to lead even now. Those that establish businesses successfully. I mean, in terms of even just celebrities like Whoopi Goldberg I admire them because they're bold, they're persistent, they have overcome a lot of challenges and are able to stand and still build on. And so it's a hard question for me. I have admiration for all those that want to change this planet for the betterment of all our collective well-being.
Sure. Well, Rahel, I understand the problems that you see and the desire to correct them, but I wonder why you have felt so compelled to actually work on solving these problems. A lot of people can identify and agree that the problem exists, but most of us don't do anything about it. Why have you decided to actually make this your cause? Why?
Well, it's quite personal in a sense because born in Africa, raised in America, in North America, I would say Canada and the US, all often misunderstood just because for everybody else, Africa was just a hut and some camels around. But yet I lived in a house, I went to good schools, we had cars and so on and so forth. And so as I grew, I had the opportunity to work in different places, including international organizations in Africa. And so one of the missing links for me was to really give my experience of Africa that I know. And as we evolve as the 21st century, I also understood that there were plenty of opportunities on the African continent, being probably the only continent that really requires a lot of development. And understanding the opportunities, economic opportunities, I said this is a perfect marriage because you can actually bring the knowledge base from the US and Canada, you can bring the capital, and you can even bring the human capital into the continent and really build up this region that has yet to reach its peak. And so for me, and also for my niece, one of the last one who was born, Vera, who was born, I should say, there was a need because her mom is Ethiopian, her father is Canadian, and for her to be proud of who she is and to also understand the Africa that I know and her parents, I should say her mother and her grandparents know. So
I think it's that is an inspiring story, and I appreciate your personal connection to Africa and how that motivates you. I want to ask you, Rahel, because you are making a difference, you're doing some great things. If you would just take a moment and share with us an impact hack, something that we can all do, that you do, that would allow us to have more impact in the world.
Well, one thing in regards to Africa is really, why not look for one or two positive news about the African continent, because we're bombarded with enough negative images from warfare to instability and famine and so on. So why not look with a lot of positive information. Just 2-3 articles a day, just read it. Your conscience will start gradually understanding that there is a positive impact, positive news from the African continent. Just reading, seeing images, positive images. There's a group of young Africans on the continent that are telling the new Africa story with images. So just follow them on Twitter, on Facebook, and see the plenty of images of the beauty of the African continent. And similarly, here is for Africans to understand the American system and structures and environment, for them to actually embrace it, and so the marriage can actually work for long term.
Oh, that's great. Great tip. Great tip. Look for the positive. Well, Rahel, thank you very much for being with us. I know that there will be people who are watching today who want to know more about what you're doing. How can they track you down and learn more about what you're doing?
So we have a website that will soon be upgrading, but nonetheless, it's www.afrolehar.com, AFROLEHAR.com. We're also on Twitter under the same handle, Afrolehar, and Facebook as well. They can check out also Knock Knock Africa and let us know what they think about it.
Fantastic. Well, Rahel, thank you very much for being with us today. We wish you every success in the great work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Devin. Thank you for the opportunity.
All righty, let's do some good.
Thank you.